described earlier, be very cautious that we don't need to present, or we do not present any data for which methods are not described. If you have not listed as an outcome of your interest in your method section, then do not present the results of such sections, such outcomes. So be very cautious on writing the results section. And then how to present the data, it can be in tables or a figure format. So what needs to be included in a figure, or what kind of data that can be presented as a figure. So you have to compare the data. So for tables, for comparing any descriptive data, you would go for a tables, that would be much easier to understand. And when any numerical data is required to be presented in the p-values, n by n format, or n versus percentage values, then it is preferable to go ahead with the tabular format to present your data. And avoid single column tables that are not good. What you are showing, what you are trying to show in a table would not be good enough to be presented in the tabular format. So there should not be any table with a single column. And then compare from left to right and include units in the headings. So these are the things which are very important when you are including your data into the tabular format. And in case of figures, there are multiple data points, variance over the time, survival plots. Then you go ahead with the figures that would make the data more easily understandable and would make it catchy. And where you can use different colors to present the different lines, then it would be much better to include the figures. But you have to check with the journal if they are allowing the colored images or figures or not. And then comparing multiple parameters across groups, then multi-panel figures can be very useful compared to tabular data, which makes it very difficult to understand in a table format. Then figures with multiple lines can be easily compared at multiple points. Use the error bars wherever possible to present the standard deviation or the standard errors into your data. And then avoid 3D graphs and cluttered figures into your manuscript. That would make the life of the audience very difficult to understand that. And then 3D graphs are very confusing when they are presented into a paper form manuscript. So avoid using any 3D graphs into your manuscript. So they look very good when you are presenting it in an oral format, but when it comes to a manuscript or a poster presentation, then 3D graphs are not at all a choice of inclusion. Check the instruction to authors for the maximum number of accepted and the number of tables and figures that are being accepted by the manuscript, and also the format requirements. That's what I said in the figures. If they allow you to use the colored figures, then it is easy to differentiate between different types of groups into one figure. But if they don't allow the colored figures, then you have to select the method of presenting your figures with multiple groups. And then use informative titles with clinical focus. The tables and the figure titles should be descriptive in itself and independent. That you can't just write table 1, table 2, figure 1, figure 2. You have to describe table 1, summary of baseline characteristics, figure 1, summary of overall survival across 5 years. So this is a type of titles that you can describe your content into the tables and the figures. Then comes the discussion part, that is the critical part of the clinical paper, where you are explaining the meaning of the results to the reader is the purpose of the discussion section of any research paper. Now you have written about your findings, that what you have found is written in the results section. Now how to interpret that, what does that mean to an audience is very important and a critical point, where you include everything into your discussion section. But there are few points which you need to avoid while writing the discussion sections, which include the over interpretation of the results. Writing the words like overwhelming results, very good results, or the overall survival was increased from years to years. So using such kind of words and phrases doesn't help. You just have to interpret your results in a very subtle manner and with your statistical significance values. For example, if you are saying that overall survival was higher in patient in group A versus group B, then you have to write or support your interpretation through the p-values. Unwarranted speculations, writing that drug A might improve the overall survival in the next 10 years. So, this is an unwarranted speculation that you don't know, you have not conducted the study for 10 years, you just conducted for 2 years, then you cannot speculate for the next 10 years what will happen or what will not. Inflating the importance of the findings. Again, what I have told, that do not use the words which are inflating your findings, like overwhelming results, very good results, or such kind of words. Statements that are not supported by the data. Anything which is not there in the results section should not be written in the discussion section. When you are writing that overall survival was improved by drug A, then the data should be there in the results section to support your discussion section. So, no statement without the data should be written or should be included into the discussion section of the manuscript. So, what is the general flow of the discussion section of a manuscript? It includes the following points, where the first thing what we do in the discussion section is provide a short reminder of the objectives of your study, and then state the main findings, but do not repeat the results. You don't have to repeat the results and the numbers again and again into your discussion section. You just have to state the main findings of your results, and then the main question should be answered here, that your research question was this and your research question was answered through these findings, and then compare the results with the findings of other authors and explain any differences in the findings. You have to be very clear, you have to be very crisp here, but you have to explain the similar studies which have been done previously and compare your findings with your current findings with the previously conducted studies, so that you can tell that these are the differences or these are the similarities in the results that you have obtained. And if there are any differences, then why there are differences, what are the reasons for all those differences, are there any strengths and weaknesses of the study, what are the limitations of the study, how did you overcome all those weaknesses or the limitations of the study, and what is the future need after your study. All this should be part of the discussion section that you are writing, and discuss the meaning of the study and its implications. What are the implications? What you tell, what you want, because it's a clinical study that we are discussing here, then what would be the implications for the physicians or the policy makers you are trying to make out of your search results, whether you want to tell your physicians that you should do some similar study but in a larger patient population, or you want to tell your physician that drug A can be a very good alternative compared to drug B, or you want to tell to the policymakers that this drug should be included in the reimbursement list. So, there are multiple type of interpretations that you can make depending on the type of results that you have obtained and depending on the type of study that you have actually conducted. So, reiterate your key conclusion here, and then common inadequacies in the discussion section, what we have seen in the years. Sometimes it becomes too long with no focus on a particular point. Sometimes there are selectively cites favorable papers. So there has been seen an author bias into it, where the discussion includes only those studies which have the similar results as yours and not the contradictory results as yours, because there has been an author bias into it, where you just want to cite the similarities or the favorable papers only and not the negative papers. And then the failure to interpret results and place them in context. Actually, story making is very important in the discussion section, where you actually interpret the results and put them into a context so that they can be seen as a useful study results. And failure to reconcile opposing findings of the others, that I already said, that even if you got the results, if you have the studies which are opposing your findings, then also you need to reconcile them, you have to discuss them, you have to discuss why they are they have got the opposite results. What are the differences between your results and the previously conducted results? That might be due to the study methodology may be little different, or the patient population has been different, or there may be multiple reasons why the findings are opposite. Even if you are not able to find the reasons of opposing results, then also you have to cite those studies and discuss that there has been such cases that the results are completely opposite to the findings of the current study. Then we have offers no explanation of unexpected results. If there are some outliers in the study, then you have to write about them, that these are the outliers for this particular reason, but you actually ignore all those outliers. So that is the adequacy that has been seen in inadequacy that has been seen in the discussion sections. And then the limitations not acknowledged and extrapolation. So you have not taken any care of any limitations during the study. Far exceeds the data in the results section. So you actually are presenting all the more data into the discussion section compared to the results section, so which is not at all accepted form of discussion section. In the discussion section, you write very briefly about your results, and not all the results are being discussed in the discussion section, or you can't write more results compared to the results section. Then inadequate references. So there are multiple references, multiple studies that has been conducted in the similar areas as yours, but you have not referred them appropriately. So these are the some of the inadequacies that needs to be understood while writing a discussion section. All these points needs to be kept in mind before completing your discussion section of the manuscript. So there are few points that you need to understand about using the paragraphs and framing the sentences into the manuscript. So when we are talking about the paragraphs, what we need to understand or what we need to keep in mind is that one idea or one theme per paragraph. It should not be that within the paragraph you are talking about three different ideas or three different points or three different results. It should be one idea per results should be discussed in one paragraph. That is the best way to present your ideas or your points into the manuscript. Then key points at the beginning, not or at the complete end. So the audience, the reader should not make effort while finding the key points from that paragraph. Either the key points should be written at the start of the paragraph or at the end of the paragraph, where the focus of the reader is most. So it is most preferable that you go for the key points into the beginning of the paragraph. And then the linking words. Linking words should always be there, but it should not exceed the limit that for every line you are using the linking word. Linking words are important to make a paragraph smooth reader, but it should not be that for every sentence connecting two different sentences which can be connected through comma or semicolon, you are using the linking word. So use it in a balanced way. Then avoid repeated one sentence paragraphs. There should not be actually one sentence paragraphs. One sentence paragraphs are always discouraged while writing a manuscript. It breaks the flow. So at least 4 to 5 liner paragraph should be there. So what are the key points that you need to focus while framing the sentences? So the sentences should be short, and rewrite if more than 30 words or more than 4 punctuations are appearing in that particular sentence. So the ideal length is 2 lines for a sentence, but if it is exceeding more than that, then it should be broken into or rewritten to create short sentences. But by short sentences, it doesn't mean that the message should not be complete into that particular sentence, or sentence is not complete in itself with all subject and verb adjustments. So check the plurals or singulars, how we are starting the sentence and how we are ending the sentence if we are talking about plurals or singulars. For example, data. we generally confuse data as a singular word, but it is actually a plural word. Data is never a singular thing. So data means always a plural thing. Fish, it's a plural. It's a plural word. So you don't have fishes to write a plural word for this. So you have to check about plurals and singulars into your sentences. So consistent use of tense. For the clinical trial manuscripts, we write the sentence, we write the manuscript in the past tense, because the study has been conducted and then we are writing, right? So there is no study or no primary research that is being conducted or will be conducted. You only write future directions in the future tense, but otherwise it's always past, because you have already conducted the study. Now you have just writing all those things that has been done already. You can write the result interpretation in the present tense. The result is showing, the result is describing, or it is explaining, the author wants to tell. So all these things can be used, but otherwise the result section, the method section, all this needs to be written in a past tense. So you have to be consistent while using the tense, the correct form of the tense while writing your manuscript. Active voice is always preferred to write a manuscript, but again, here is a glitch that some journals, they specify that what voice they would prefer, active voice or passive voice. So accordingly you have to select your words and sentences accordingly. Then avoid glitches, that is the vast majority at the present time. What do you mean by a present time? I am reading this article in 2024, although the article was published in 1968, or the article was published in 2000 even. That at what time? At present time means 2024 or 2020 or 1968. So you should specify in 1968 or in 1967. In 1968 the study was published, so probably the author was writing it in 1967 or early 1968. So the specification should be very clear that in 1967 or before 1967 or after 1967. So what is that? The vast majority. The vast majority, what do you mean by vast majority? In 1968 the population was in some lakhs in India, but now it's like 140 crores. So vast majority, what do you mean by vast majority? So you should not use such kind of words which are ambiguous, which have no complete clarity into them. So you should use the clear words like 10 lakh people, 2 lakh people, or if you are talking about in thousands or in crores, so whatever it is. So you should be very clear in your words, in your data that you are presented. So all these points you should be very clear while using the paragraphs and the framing of the sentences into your manuscript. So can you avoid unnecessary words here? So please have a look. Original words was 26 words. In this study too, it was noted that there was a decline in neurocognitive function at the time of disease progression in both groups of the patients. Now we are trying to just avoid the unnecessary words, and from making it 3-liners just to 2-liners. Just state the fact, avoid when possible. We already know that we are talking about the patient, so it's like just 15 words. This study also showed us decline in neurocognitive function after disease progression in both the groups, right? So this is how we can make a difference while writing and while selecting the correct words we want to present. So now comes the abstract, which is almost at the last part of the manuscript what we are writing. Check structured or unstructured style. We have seen in our abstract section that there are two types of abstract, one with the structured format and another with the unstructured format. That depends on the journal requirements, that how they want to present. Generally for the clinical trials, it's generally written in a structured format where we follow the introduction or background section, then method section, results, and then this conclusion part of the abstract. So this is a structured part. We write the sentences in this sequence only, but we don't use the subheading in the unstructured style of the abstract. So that all depends on the journal requirements, what the journal says. Use abbreviations sparingly and logically. Generally, abstracts should not have any abbreviations. Because of the word count, you can't first specify in full and then define the abbreviation. That is not possible. So, and without defining in first go, the abbreviation should not be used. So, it is always preferable that you should not use abbreviations in the abstract. However, there are, because of the word count, sometimes there becomes a requirement that you have to use abbreviations, but abbreviations should only be used that are universally standard. For example, WHO, World Health Organization, it's a universal standard abbreviations. If you want, then you can use into your abstract. However, there are some abbreviations like which are not universally acceptable. For example, there TX. TX is for treatment. PT for patients. These are not universally acceptable abbreviations, so should not be used in the abstract just to meet the word count or the character count of the abstract. So these are not preferable abbreviations. So don't include anything not in the main text. Again, whatever you have discussed in the main text should only become the part of the abstract, and nothing new should be introduced or should be written in the abstract which has not been discussed in the main text. That is a very important point. For example, if you have discussed only the 5 outcomes in the main text, then only the 5 outcomes or lesser than that can be discussed in the abstract, but not the 6th outcome. So that you have to take care. Avoid conclusion creep. So this is a point where you have to be very cautious that you, in the main text, you have written conclusion based on the complete discussion and with some riders in your conclusion section, because you had that space to write that. But in abstract, you, because of the word count, you can't just write a generalized statement. For example, in the conclusion section of the main text, you have written that drug A can be used in drug B among patients with rheumatoid arthritis. However, a future study with more number of patients in this particular area is warranted. Now you, because of the word count, you didn't write the second part of the sentence into your abstract conclusion. So then it becomes that drug A is better than drug B and should be used in patients with rheumatoid arthritis. Then what does that mean? So that has created a whole different story out of your conclusion of the abstract compared to the conclusion in the main text. Sometimes, see, for many readers, the full text is not accessible because of the payment charges. So they only would rely on the abstract part of your manuscript. So don't make such statements into the conclusion section of the abstract, right? So make every word count. By that means you have to include the articles as well into your abstract and make the readable flow of your abstract. It should not be that because of the word count you are avoiding the articles to be included in the abstract that were actually required to complete the sentence, but you avoided them just to complete the just to keep the word count under your measure. If you have some issues with the word count, then avoid or delete some results or write or adjust them somewhere else. But it's not a good method that you avoid articles just to adjust the word count of the abstract, because it breaks the readability of the sentence. Double check after making changes in the main text. So see, this is very important point where now you have completed writing your abstract, your main text was already ready. But what happens that you submit it to the editor and editor sends you some comments in the main text. You make some changes in the main text, but you forget to change that particular thing into your abstract. That can make your abstract contradictory. So you have to double check if you have made any changes in the main text, then the same changes should have been incorporated into your abstract section. So be very cautious. while before submitting your manuscript. Now comes the title section. We have seen the title section in the previous sections as well, where we know that what kind of titles should be there. The title should be simple and concise, but it should have the information about your article, because it is the first part that every reader sees, and from that information he or she would be interested in reading your complete article. It should be very interesting and eye catching, but on the same time it should be accurate and very specific about your topic, right? If it should not be such that that you are using idioms while writing the title of your article. It should be accurate and specific about the topic you are going to discuss. Stating the subject in full is important. Indicative of the study design, animal species. You are defining your patients, you are defining about your study design, you are defining about your animal species. All this should be part of your title. On the other hand, it should be grammatically correct with no missing articles or verbs or anything else which makes it unreadable. Then avoid abbreviations or exclamatory titles. So again, abbreviations should not be part of your title, as I told you in abstract as well. They should not be part of your subject title. So this might be all a reader ever reads. Sometimes the title, if the audience feel that title is not of my interest, he or she would not even go to read the abstract of the article. So you should be very clear on what you want to tell to your audience to make it readable. You want to attract your audience through your title. So it should be concise but with the complete information. It should be accurate and very specific. We have two types of titles that we discussed earlier also, where we have descriptive and informative titles, where you can tell about your study in detail without any abbreviations or grammatical mistakes. We have to keep all these things into the mind before writing the titles, because this is the only thing some readers would ever read and not go for the complete article or the complete manuscript reading. Thank you.